Welcome to Seattle Sports Union. My name is Abraham Deweese, and with me today is Bob Lucky. Hi,
Hey,
Bob.
Abraham, how's it going?
Not bad, not bad. And especially not bad because today was the start of the NFL season. All right, fine. A lot of you out there say last Thursday was, but today was the start of the Seahawks season. And we all know the Seahawks and their season is going to end up in the culmination of yet another trophy. More hardware in the shape and the form of the Super Bowl trophy. Well, you got to start somewhere, and today they started with a 12-10 win over those Miami Dolphins.
That's an ugly win, though, wasn't it?
It was an ugly win, all right. But you know what they say is the W is all that matters. I'd rather take an ugly win over a really nice looking loss, because you know what you don't get trophies for, Bob? Almost winning. You don't get trophies for almost winning.
But,
you get trophies for winning.
I heard in school everybody gets a trophy nowadays.
There's no participation award at this level. And the Hawks, for the first, I would say 3 quarters, it looked like they were just participating. There wasn't a lot out there. What I saw a lot of today was lethargy, a team trying to figure out what their offensive line is. But the great news is, on the other side of the ball, the Seattle Seahawks defense came to play. You had guys flying all over the field, and what I was interested in most was who was going to replace Bruce Irvin, and we got to see where the sacks came from. Bob, I was super excited about this defense. They stifled the Dolphins left and right. I know I got your feedback on this earlier today, that you thought the very last play of the game should have been a safety.
Absolutely. He didn't go to his knees until he was in the end zone.
Yes. On that very last play, the Seahawks blew up the offensive line and tackled Ryan Tannehill from the Miami Dolphins into the end zone. He was at the 1, but whatever. I think more to the point, you were interested in seeing a nice score of 14-10 rather than 12-10. Am I wrong?
You know, the 12-10, it was a kind of embarrassing score because they didn't score 4 field goals, now did they?
Yeah, they did not score 4 field goals. However, in the first half, there were 3 field goals kicked by each team combined. You had 1 field goal by the Dolphins. The first points on the board actually were the Seahawks, and that got me a little bit excited to see them get off to a nice little start and get some points on the board. But for the rest of that first half, all we saw were field goals and all we saw were punts. Bob, are you a fan of punts and field goals?
You know what? I do like the points that come with them. And
the punts?
Well, not with the punts, but they're kind of dull. I mean, it's just back and forth, back and forth. We want the big plays. We want the touchdowns.
I know you were working as you were watching the game. Were you getting... Where were you at as far as the snooze-o-meter? If the snooze-o-meter is you just completely not paying attention versus, being able to actually actively listen and see what's going on. I know for myself, I was kind of phasing in and out and watching a little baseball, and that snooze-o-meter was pretty high for me, even on a great, wonderful day like today, where football just gets into your blood and soul.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, Abraham. I mean, it's probably not for the best, but I didn't really neglect my job today. Not that I would normally, but they didn't really do anything that would draw my attention away from it.
Oh, well, then that might have been a great thing. Now, I know my blood got pumping in that third quarter when Russell Wilson got his ankle stepped on by Ndamukong Suh. My heart jumped from my chest into my mouth. That's how shocked and confused and scared I was. Did you have the same kind of feelings? Did you have any other kind of feelings, or were you just looking at like Russell Wilson's going to come back? What did you think, Bob?
Absolutely, Abraham. I was scared to death. I mean, you take away Russell Wilson's mobility, and you still got a good passer, and he only gets those passes because of that mobility.
Well, especially when you consider that this offensive line is new. There's just new names everywhere on this thing. Nobody on this offensive line played the position that they're playing right now as of last year. So, no Jermaine Ifedi, their number one draft pick. Without a great offensive line, Russell Wilson has to run around. He has to do that to make plays, right?
Absolutely. I mean, he nearly got sacked quite a few times today. He managed to get away from it. I mean, if he had a bad ankle, we'd be in trouble.
Yeah, I saw him go back and get taped up. You mentioned to me earlier today that it was triple taped.
Yeah, 3 layers. It sounded like they were really taking the mobility out of that ankle.
It looked like he was wearing Ugg boots. And he got sacked 3 times, got pressured several more times, and I was definitely worried. I mean, as boring as that first half was, I was expecting the worst. But you know what happened? He just kind of found a way to make it work. Also, the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevel, changed up the game plan a little bit. Instead of putting him in a situation to get beat up, he ran the ball a lot more in the second half.
What? Darrell Bevel?
Yes.
He ran the ball.
He ran the ball. Yes. Okay, I'll move on from that topic because I know that's a sore subject for everyone. Anyway, we saw him give 15 carries, not carols, 15 carols, 15 B carols.
If only.
15 carries to Kristen Michael, who was named the number 1 running back. But he also gave another 13 carries to Thomas Rawls, who was back from injury. I was a little confused as to why he got so many carries, but once we saw him hit the hole in a fearless manner, yeah, I think Rawls is going to be back. The only problem is, what did we see out of the Dolphins' defensive line? Nothing but brutal viciousness, right, Bob?
Oh my God! They stopped us at every corner.
They stopped us everywhere, and we saw an interception in that first half.
To be fair, we saw an interception in the 3rd play of the game.
Yes. So it was...
Or excuse me, a fumble. They stripped it out of him.
Oh, yeah, well, there's the fumble as well. But, I mean, we saw a defense. Ultimately, what we saw is a defense in the Miami Dolphins that's very, very good. And they really laid the wood on us. They took us to the woodshed. I think that you might be looking in the Miami Dolphins defense to be right in that same kind of category as the Seahawks. I mean, they were stifling. So when you look at this win, just being a 12-10 win, don't take anything away from this like that's a problem. No, we faced a defense in the Miami Dolphins that's capable of stuffing teams, and I'm gonna tell you what, they probably will have one of the better scoring defenses, as in keeping teams down in points at the end of this season. I didn't think that the Seahawks offensive line looked good, and that's been a concern of mine. It's been a concern of all of yours. Bob, that offensive line you've been complaining about for a long time.
I have been. I mean, especially, as our baseball editor, Matt Page, will probably give me a little bit of grief about later. Last year with Russell Wilson calling the plays, not relying on Unger, I mean, they've had a hole in the center for over a season now, and it didn't seem like they fixed it today. They let way too many people through to get penetration on Wilson.
You're correct. Everything was coming up the middle from those Miami Dolphins. Justin Britt looked meh. You had Mark Lewinsky. He looked meh. And you just had guys across the offensive line that didn't look special or interesting at all. It was great news, though, that Russell Wilson was able to get the ball out of his hands when he could before he got utterly slaughtered. But we saw several really rough hits on Wilson, including that ankle injury, including him getting bear hugged and thrown down to the ground by Cameron Wake. Just all sorts of brutality. And Bob, I'm a little concerned. Can a person, even an amazing A+ athlete like Russell Wilson, last 16 games?
Not if this is a precursor to the rest of the season. I mean, he already got injured once today. And we don't even know how bad that's going to be. That could be a sprain or a hairline fracture.
Oh my gosh! I hope it's not a hairline fracture. Now you can get that on an X-ray, right?
Yeah, you can get it on an X-ray.
Okay, so if it's a hairline fracture, there's no way to heal that except for not using your legs, right?
Pretty much. I think we would have heard about it if it was a fracture by now. But sometimes things like that, those small injuries, they sometimes take a while to figure out. I mean, maybe next week we'll be going in and he'll still be feeling stiff, and that'll be cause for concern, I think.
But I believe a hairline fracture, though, wouldn't that shelf you for like, if you wanted to heal properly, don't you have to be shelved for several months on end?
Yeah, I mean, he'd be out for at least a month, I would say.
What would you think about a twisted ankle, though, just like a sprained ankle?
I think they'll tape it again, and he'd be back for next game.
Well, they do a lot of things in the pros that are pretty interesting. They can like do cortisone shots, right, to numb the pain, and then you just kind of grit it out. But if he, like you said, if he loses his mobility, there goes half his game. There goes what makes him, one of the things that makes him special, and there goes, some of our, there goes our chances, I think. Let me move on, though, back to the running game for a minute. I was touching on both Christian Michael and Thomas Rawls splitting the carries. Now, in conventional football, you have one awesome running back who carries the ball all the time. And we'll get something to the effect of 1,500 yards in a year, maybe 2,000. Just think of Marshawn Lynch. Now, that's a great thing to have. Not a lot of teams have it. There are teams that can win the Super Bowl without one running back. They'll have multiple running backs. They'll, like you look at your Pittsburgh Steelers when they beat the Seahawks in 2005. They had Jerome Bettis, but they also had some other running backs as well. They made sure to cycle Bettis through because he was getting old. You take a look at, that 1991 New York Giants team. They had O.J. Anderson, but they also had Dave Meggett as well. So you had a catching running back, and then you had the power running back. You can go through it. It's not a one-to-one relationship in the best running backs winning Super Bowls for you. It's usually what the quarterback does, and that's where I'm a little bit concerned again. Bob, Thomas Rawls was one of your favorite running backs because you saw him as a little beast mode last year. He was just going through like a bowling ball, and then he had that horrible injury. Do you think that the running style, the kind of running style that Marshawn Lynch has, not everybody's capable of sustaining that, do you think? I don't think so.
I think you're right, and I don't think it's a good strategy to put a rookie in. And Marshawn Lynch, he had some, he had quite a bit of experience before they really started relying on him as beast mode.
Right. So that was, okay, he was a rookie. Yeah. Usually putting in a rookie is a bad thing. I don't want to harp on that because that can go completely down a tangent. I want to go down the idea of, I'm going to go down the road of, is it a good idea getting that rookie in a position where he gets beat up and you might have these injuries recur because of his running style? His running style, he looks for contact. He looks to get beat up and he wants to beat up other people. Just constant sustained hits, on his frame. He's a very small guy. That's not going to be a good thing. He can't carry the ball, I don't think, 30 times a game. But what we saw today, Bob, was he only carried the ball 12 times a game. So if you're removing his carries by over half, that's got to be a good thing, right? That might make him last a little bit longer.
I think you're right. And the reason I was harping on him as a rookie is that we just don't know what his body's going to be like. We don't if that injury was a fluke or if he's fragile.
Ooh, that if you want F words, that's probably the worst F word in all of football, isn't it?
Probably, fragile. Especially for a running back like him, who's Beast Mode Junior. You can't have a guy who's going to break doing that kind of play style.
Bob, who is your favorite wide receiver on this football team?
I don't think I could name them because I suck at that.
You like Baldwin, don't you?
I do like Baldwin. He's on a poster at work of mine. He's like the only player I have.
I like you, Bob. You thought it was a trick question. No, I wanted you to name the guy that you have the poster of at work.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, I would always say throw it to Baldwin. He catches it when you throw it to him, and I still feel that's true.
Yeah, I could hear you. I could hear you chunking information like, am I supposed to say Graham? Am I supposed to? Is there some third string guy that I'm supposed
Jimmy
to name?
Grahams.
No, Baldwin's the right answer. Baldwin, as all of you saw today, caught that 2-yard reception for the game-winning touchdown. But it wasn't just that. He had 11 targets with 9 catches for 92 yards. 92 yards, not all that great for 11 attempts because that means he's catching a lot of underneath stuff. But you know what? This was a hard-fought game. You got to take every yard you can get. And 6 points is still 6 points. And it was a catch that that's not very easy to make because it was over the shoulder into the corner of that end zone. And he is money. And when you have 30 seconds left on the clock, Bob, when there's only 30 seconds left on the clock, you got to put the ball in your best player's hands, right?
Yeah, you either got Baldwin or you have Graham, and if there's a little girl in a frilly dress standing in front of him, he's going to get stuffed.
In front of Graham?
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's fair. But, Graham showed up. Okay, wait, maybe it's not fair. Graham did make an appearance today, much to my surprise. I saw him come in on a running play, and he laid a block. It wasn't very good. But later on, he did get a catch, and that means he's back. But he's getting eased back into the role because they used Luke Wilson far more than they used Graham. Okay, I gotta say one more thing about the receiving core, and then we got to run a break. I got to see out of Paul Richardson what I've been wanting to see for a while. I wanted to see him healthy, and I want to see him making good cuts. And I wanted to see him making good decisions, and that's what he made. He didn't have a lot of catches, but he did look like an NFL wide receiver. And if you give me Paul Richardson, if you give me Jermaine Kearse, Baldwin, and Tyler Lockett, then you're probably looking at the best set of 4 receivers in the NFL. Okay, fine. No one of them would be a number 1 receiver on a lot of teams, but are there any other teams that have 4 receivers as good as them? No, there isn't. All right, we're going to run a break. We'll be back with Bob Lucky and myself, Abraham DeWeese. We are the Seattle Sports Union. This is our special Seahawks opening day episode, and we'll be right back. You still do the audio during the break?
Yeah,
Okie dokie. Okay. And I'm looking up the stuff here.
That's okay. I figured something on screen during the break. I was like, it's such a good
Okay.
And a question from Brett, which you think the Hawks should sign a veteran QB even if Dangerous is okay next year?
Well, make that during the show. Ask me that question. Well, okay, fine. I prefer improving it. Ready anytime you are.
What are we talking about?
What we should move to the defense now. Yeah.
You want to just go straight into the audience question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, before we do defense, I agree.
You want to come back or should I?
You can come back. That'd be great.
Welcome back, everybody. My name is Bob, and with me today is Abraham DeWeese. We're Seattle Sports Union. Check us out on the web at seattlesportsunion.com or facebook.com/Seattle Sports Union. Hey, Abe, we got a question from the web while we were at break.
Oh, great. What do we got?
Brett asked, do you think the Hawks should sign a veteran QB even with Dangerous of maybe not being out because of that ankle injury.
Yeah, actually, I think that's an incredibly good. That's a great question. I think that's an incredibly good foresight by Brett. We should indeed go ahead and sign a quarterback as a backup. Trayvon Boykin is not the quarterback you need thrust into a mantle of leadership. He isn't at a point where he's got the game down, and that's what we saw in preseason. He wasn't capable of doing it. Basically, what the Seahawks are doing right now is they're rolling the dice, hoping they can get away with not having a backup quarterback. And most assuredly, they're going to panic if Wilson gets injured. Now, can Trayvon Boykin be a great quarterback in the future? Maybe. Who knows? I have no idea. But what I saw in preseason was an athlete playing at the quarterback position. And that's not what you need in the NFL. It's not what you want, and you shouldn't have on the team. You need to have a quarterback at the quarterback position. And that's definitely not what Trayvon Boykin is now.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Abe. During the preseason, he was good. He looked good out there. He performed well against the other teams, the other preseason teams. But he just wasn't consistent in that performance. He showed signs of greatness that maybe one day he'll have, but I don't think he's ready for the bigs.
Yeah. Yeah. But then again, I mean, what are we going to do though? I mean, it isn't the game. The season's already started. There aren't a lot of quarterbacks to go get. So let's not bash the Seahawks in them trying to roll the dice, because let's face it, what are they going to do? They're going to go down to 7-Eleven and find a guy working the Slurpee machine?
Oh, we could go get Colin Kaepernick. He seems okay sitting on the bench.
Yes. No, nobody wants that. Nobody wants him. But I would like to see. I'd like to see the Seahawks go do it. I'm just under the assumption that there isn't anything out there that's interesting or exciting for them to go get. Okay. Let's move on to defense. This is a Seattle Seahawks defense that gave up 222 yards in total offense to the Miami Dolphins. 222. That's either a god-awful Miami Dolphins offense, or that is an awesome Seahawks defense. Bob, did you see anything out of the Dolphins that made you say, "Hey, is that Ryan Tannehill look like Tom Brady to me"? That's not what you saw, is it?
I saw a nice dive for a touchdown, but
he did have a good touchdown run. Yes.
I just gotta say, if I were the coaching staff and I was watching that on tape, I'd question if those 6 points were worth that hit.
Yeah, he got lit up by Earl Thomas. That was fun. But the problem is he only threw for 186 yards in the game. As an NFL quarterback, you look at a bad day being something to the effect of 250 yards. If that's all you threw is 186 and you only put up 10 points on the board, that's a terrible day. That's a terrible day indeed. It wasn't necessarily all him. He's actually an okay quarterback. There's nothing wrong with him. What was wrong for the Dolphins, what was bad for Miami, was that we saw the likes of Michael Bennett, the likes of Frank Clark, and Cassius Marsh. We saw all these defensive linemen from the Seahawks breaking through and making Tannehill look foolish. He looked like a guy with his hair on fire. I saw you, Bob, over there watching Michael Bennett just come through and just blow up Tannehill.
My God. I don't even know why he held on to that ball. He pumped the ball, and then he decided, you know what? I'm just going to take a sack with the ball in hand.
Well, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, if Michael Bennett came after me, I might just hand him the football and say, "This is yours, sir. You seem to have lost it."
The intentional grounding penalty probably would have been less of a penalty than that hit.
Yeah, the problem is you're going to get hit either way. I mean, maybe instead of getting hit, you just dive.
Something,
yeah. Well, the great news is that the Seattle defense was in the backfield all day. Cassius Marsh got a sack. Also got 4 tackles. Frank Clark, sensation, got 3 tackles and a sack and a quarterback pressure. And what we saw from Bennett was that just amazing sack as well. Oh, there was a 4th sack. I forgot about this. Bobby Wagner came through on a blitz and just basically picked up Tannehill WWF style. WWE style.
Like the Pandas?
No, not like the Panda Bears. Not WWF. WWE, he picked him up like Brock Lesnar and just gave him a suplex right onto the ground. That was exciting. I enjoyed that a lot. I'm sure Tannehill still hearing bells in his head at this point, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the Hawks defense was aggressive today. I mean, the fourth quarter, when they threw that little couple yard pass, and they just stripped it right out of the receiver's hands. If it wasn't for the sideline, that would have been the end of the game and an interception or a fumble.
Oh, yeah. I really enjoyed watching the Legion of Boom shut down this Tannehill-led offense. The number 1 receiver for the Dolphins was Arian Foster with 62 yards. But those were yards that he kind of all got on one catch. And he was basically catching balls out of the backfield. And if the leading receiver for the other team is a running back, that's good news, isn't it, Bob?
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's the wide receivers are the one running down like 80 yards down the field, right? It's the running backs are just, what are they going to get you at most? You know, obviously Foster got 62 yards, but I mean, that's atypical. Usually a running back will only give you like maybe 5 yards per catch.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're going for with a pass to a running back is just to get a couple yards, because you know if they do catch it, they're going to push through that 1 or 2 more yards for the first down.
Yep, and you're also throwing the running back because you can't find a receiver to throw it to. Yeah, so, and I looked at Landry. Landry only got 3 catches for the Dolphins today, and that's their big dangerous wide receiver threat. But he was inconsequential because Jeremy Lane, Deshaun Shedd stepped up. These are guys who everybody was wondering a couple of years ago, who's going to play up? Byron Maxwell left, and everybody wondered who's going to play opposite of Richard Sherman. Well, Jeremy Lane did a great job, and in the nickel, Deshaun Shedd did an amazing job. Speaking of Byron Maxwell, Bob, did you see that the Dolphins, the former Legion of Boom member, was playing for the Dolphins today?
I did notice that.
Did you care? It sounds like you didn't care that much, though.
Not really. I tend to forget about them once they leave, to be perfectly honest. I'm that kind of fan.
Well, to be fair, I mean, he did an okay job, and Russell Wilson only threw for, I want to say, 260 something, and had an interception to go with his touchdown. But it wasn't the world's greatest day by Russell Wilson, and part of that, is on the Miami Dolphins defense. They did a fantastic job. Only thing is, Seahawks did a better job on defense than the Dolphins did. Seahawks defense once again won this game. I know that Russell Wilson, and I wrote in my article on SeattleSportsUnion.com, I wrote in my article that Baldwin and Russell Wilson won this game, but you'll notice that most of the article I wrote talks about the defense. Bob, do you get more thrill out of a defense like this Seahawks defense, like just blowing up quarterback? Or are you more excited about touchdowns from running back or receiver on the Seahawks team?
I think it depends on the situation. I mean, perfectly honest, the part that excited me the most about today's game was late in the game where the Dolphins were in the red zone and they just got shut down.
Mm-hmm. And that's the reason. It was a loaded question because, like, when I watch a game with you, I notice like when some defensive lineman comes through, blows up a offensive lineman, and just lays out a quarterback, you're just like, yes. And when it's a touchdown, you're like, oh, good show, chops.
We do like a good hit on the quarterback, provided it's not ours.
What did that quarterback ever do to you, Bob?
He managed to get 10 points today.
That's a good point. That's a good point. All right, so with that defensive effort, I think what you're looking at is yet another Seahawks defense that's going to be rated the number one defense this year for the 5th year in a row. Right now, the Seahawks have set a record in scoring defense. Scoring defense, of course, being keeping the other team to as few points as possible. They, for the 4th year in a row, allowed the fewest points in the NFL. No team has ever done that. When we're taking a look at a dynasty, did I say dynasty? A dynasty. Or is it dynasty? I don't know which one it is, Bob.
I believe a dynasty is
Dynasty?
the proper
Okay.
pronunciation.
All right. When we're looking at a dynasty like this, we haven't seen this before in the NFL. And when you're looking at the greatest defenses of all time, start talking now about these Seahawks. Don't wait 10 years, 20 years from now and be like, I remember when those Seahawks were a great dynasty. No, you can talk about it now. This is a dynasty. This is a Seahawk dynasty as far as the defense goes that you should be proud of and you should just enjoy every week.
Personally, I hope we're not talking about how great the Seahawks were 5-10 years from now, because you only talk about them in those terms when they've lost it. And I don't, honestly, Pete Carroll's done a great job of sustaining the team over years, filling holes where he needs to keep the Legion of Boom a thing. Maybe not done so well in the center position, but nobody's perfect.
Hey, speaking of nobody's perfect, Bob, you were giving Stephen Hauschka a lot of lip over that missed extra point.
I'm sorry. I thought I was watching another one of our baseball editors, Ian Loney, play golf. He shanked the hell out of that ball.
Yeah, that was not good at all. The great news is, in that very same game, the Seahawks did block a field goal by the Dolphins. Cassius Marsh came up big, jumped up. It looked like it jumped up like 20 feet in the air, Bob.
Yeah, that, if you think about it now, Abe, we won 10-12. That play gave us the game.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're right. I mean, that was vitally important. Seemed like a fun thing at the time, but turned out to be the game changer. Well, so what we saw out of the Seahawks today, we got to run a break here in a minute, but what we saw out of the Seahawks today was a defensive unit that looks in mid-season form, and they're ready to rock and roll. What we saw out of the offense are the same problems on the offensive line, and now, unfortunately, a limping Russell Wilson. What will we see next week? Well, we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. All right, we're the Seattle Sports Union. We're going to run the break. I'm Abraham DeWeese. With me is Bob Lucky. Just want to quickly throw out there to everybody, we just got our media credentials for the Everett Silvertips. We have been attending the Everett Aqua Sox minor league baseball team, their games, and our success over this summer has allowed us to enter yet another arena and another sport. And if you guys are out there, if anybody out there is a Silvertips fan, anybody out there is a hockey fan who wants to cover this team, the Everett Silvertips, reach out to us. Bob, what's a good way for them to reach out to us?
Hey, we have seattlesideUp@gmail.com, or send us a message on Facebook. Throw a post up on facebook.com/SeattleSideUp. Leave a comment on the video. We'll get back to you.
We are also looking for writers in other sports as well. But I just wanted to throw it out there that we now have media credentials. We will be behind the scenes getting the interviews and post them on our SeattleSportsUnion.com website. We're running a break and we'll be right back.
Can't run a break. Abe,
Yes?
just because we're talking about how awesome it is to have media credentials,
Yeah.
and how awesome it would be for whoever's watching to get them,
Uh-huh.
how great was it walking on the field at Safeco?
Oh, yes. Okay. So it was fantastic, guys. We got those media credentials with the Everett Aqua Sox, and by happenstance, the Aqua Sox got to play in Safeco Field against the Spokane Indians. Went down there. We got to sit in the camera well and take amazing pictures. Check those pictures out at our Facebook site and our Twitter at SSU. I'm sorry, our Twitter is Seattle Sports U, and our Facebook page is Seattle Sports Union. Check those pictures out; they're really good, and it was just fun as heck to get free reign and to get the interviews and to get the camera shots and be where the pros are at.
Okay, so we probably should really go to
We
break.
will now run a break, yes. But we'll talk about the Rams when we come right back.
Okay. Now I'm ready to go get rid of it. It's been more up and down than it usually is. More people coming.
Okay, good.
The next step is to get everything around.
Yeah. Nope, doing good. And we'll just go like 10 minutes at the end of it. I'll just,
What's our topic?
Los Angeles Rams.
Los Angeles Rams next week.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about this team.
that's okay. Nobody does. Nobody likes this team. Nobody cares. But I don't like this team. Anyway, but I do know about them, so that's good news. All right, you want to bring us in?
Sure. Welcome back to Seattle Sports Union Live. My name is Bob, and over here we have Abraham DeWeese, actually. No, that way, over there. There he is, the big guy. And we are Seattle Sports Union. Visit us on the web at seattlesportsunion.com or at our Facebook site, facebook.com/Seattle Sports Union. Visit us on Twitter at Twitter/Seattle Sports U. And over to you, Abraham.
All right, so we were just talking about the Seahawks win over those Miami Dolphins. It was not a beautiful win. It was not a win that I want to watch ever again, because I swear, Bob, I almost had a heart attack several times in that fourth quarter. But it was a win nonetheless, and you and I were talking earlier, you don't get trophies for almost winning.
I was worried the entire fourth quarter. I so did not want to see a repeat of the start of last season.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. Against the Packers.
Everything fell apart for the first 5 games in the fourth quarter.
Well, it was what we saw in Russell Wilson was the heart of a champion, a man who's going to win and force his team to win against all odds. And with his hurt ankle, he somehow did it. Well, next week, our Seattle Seahawks travel down to Los Angeles, where those Rams, the Fighting Rams of Los Angeles, will be playing, I believe, at the Coliseum. You might remember the Rams originally started in Anaheim back in the, I don't know what it was, like 50s or something like that. And then they moved in the 90s to St. Louis. And they just moved back this year. Bob, what is it with sports teams that want to move? I mean, if you were living in LA, Bob, and the Rams left in the 90s and then they came back, would you welcome with open arms like all these Rams fans are? They're everywhere, and they want them back. And
yeah, I think I would, because as much as I don't like the NBA today, we'd all welcome back the Sonics.
Sure. Like if Oklahoma Thunder came back to Seattle.
Hell, I'd just take the name at this point.
So, yeah, I think it's really crazy. I know Matt Page is my usual host. He is very angry that the Rams moved to LA because it's really sticking it to St. Louis fans. Ultimately, though, I get it from a business perspective. Would I want to open a business in St. Louis, or would I want to open a business in Los Angeles? I mean, the answer is pretty easy, right, Bob?
Oh, absolutely. In a heartbeat, Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at how many people do you think live in the St. Louis area? 1 million? 1 million, maybe?
And those are those 1 million people are, at least eclipsed in income by 10% of the Los Angeles market.
Yep, you bet, you bet. And then you have the Los Angeles market, which is what, something like 15 million people. I mean, you're just going to make more revenues. The revenue is going to be through the roof, and you'll be able to get all the celebrities and all the stars too, wouldn't you, Bob? I mean, like, it's going to be a circus, and they open their season this year against the Seahawks. I'm expecting to see people like, Will Ferrell and Snoop Dogg. I bet all those guys are going to be there, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I wouldn't put it past seeing the the Seattle celebrity Paul Allen and his ilk in there as well.
Just to rub elbows with all the other celebrity. You bet, you bet. Well, so this Los Angeles Rams team, when they were in St. Louis, did not do so well. In fact, Jeff Fisher, the head coach for the Rams, has never made the playoffs with that team. He's been average at best. And what we're looking at this year is a team that's fielding Case Keenum at quarterback. Now, they went and got the first overall pick in Jared Goff from Cal, but they found out that he can't play at a level that they need him to. And it's a little scary, because the rule of thumb in the NFL is a first round pick needs to be a starter on your team. And they went all in on this guy because they know they can sell seats and tickets and all that good stuff, and celebrities will want to be his best bud. But he can't even make the starting roster, Bob. If you spend all your draft picks, they traded some draft picks, not all of them, but to get this guy, and you can't even start, is that a bit of a failure? Or would you rather play it conservative and not get him beat up in the first year?
I think with how much they spent on him, if they want him to, go the distance, they should bench him this year.
Okay, so you actually are more a fan of the conservative approach. Is that because this year is a transition year? You're just moving into LA. The seats are going to sell themselves. The celebrities are still going to show up. Winning, are you saying like winning probably doesn't even matter at this point?
Yeah, I would say adopt a mid 2000s Mariners approach. Let's go for a rebuilding year. Let's not worry about the seats. They'll sell themselves. And, if we don't win this year, people are still going to come back next year because it's our second year back in town.
Yeah, but that's always been the problem with the Mariners now, hasn't it? People still go to the games and don't protest by not showing up. I mean, that's been oh boy, what doors did you open here, Bob? Because the Mariners make money whether they win or lose. So why make a lot of effort to win?
As harsh as that sounds, it's been the Mariners' philosophy for the past, 10, 15 years. I don't know. I know we're talking Seahawks, but perhaps with the recent leadership change, we'll see a difference in that strategy, because that has been their communicated strategy.
Yeah.
We're going to make money. Let's only put in the amount of effort we need to make money.
Yeah. And with the way the Rams are operating in LA, they're going to make money. It's not going to be a big deal. Again, they got the whole market to themselves. When they left Los Angeles, the Raiders were actually in Los Angeles at that time as well. So they had to split the market with that team. And honestly, from people that I know from Los Angeles, when both teams in the 80s and 90s were in Los Angeles, most Los What's the person from Los Angeles called? An
Los
Angelino?
Angelinos.
Los Angelinos, yes. Stupid name.
It's better than Seattleite.
Huh? I don't call people here Seattleites.
Washingtonian.
Anyway, people that I've talked to who are from LA and grew up during that time have told me, listen, most people like the Raiders. The Rams are just meh. Your dad watched the Rams. The kids all like the Raiders, right? I mean, Bob, it's the silver and black and the pirate thing, right? The gang type of atmosphere.
And I think the Raiders played off of that being in Oakland.
Yeah.
The entire time.
Well, they played off that when they went to LA too for those 20 years, and they seem happy with that theme. I mean, it sells, yeah. But anyway, I think now that Rams are coming back to LA, they get the whole market to themselves, and they're really digging that. Now let's take a look at between the lines here. I talked a little bit about the quarterback. I'm not super impressed with Case Keenum. But it's their running back, Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley is an amazing running back last year out of University of Georgia. Surpassed my anticipation of what he was going to do. I didn't think he was a 1,000-yard runner. I thought he was going to get injured. But he bulldozed through defenses left and right. It didn't translate much into wins because partially, the running game is just a portion of the game. They couldn't get their passing game going again this last year. And I don't think they're going to get it going again this year. I mean, I look at these receivers. Tavon Austin's all right. Kenny Britt, old. Brian Quick. I mean, we're talking about guys I've never heard of. We're getting into these Brian Quicks, Mike Thomas, Pharaoh Cooper. Never heard of these guys. Tavon Austin can be good, but the guy's never actually shown it. And this is a prove it to me league. Okay. I'm not with this Seahawks defense, Bob. Are you even worried about the Rams offense? You got a quarterback you've never heard of, receivers you've never heard of, one good running back.
I'd say there's not much we need to worry about, but I am a true Seattle fan. I'm waiting for them to let me down at every corner. But as long as the Hawks are vigilant, I think we should do okay with this defense.
Well, I mean, I saw
this offense.
What did you see out of this defense today from the Hawks? I mean, they kind of shut down Miami, right?
They did, but they weren't at the top of their game, I think. I think they're still warming up for the regular season. I think they have a long way to go to be the true Legion of Boom, but it was an excellent performance all the same.
Well, heck, if you're saying that they're not even at their best, don't you fear for the rest of the league?
I do, and the rest of the league should be fearful.
All right. Speaking of good defenses, I'm not a big fan of the secondary of the Rams, but this defensive line with Aaron Donald and Robert Quinn, I'm a little bit worried. I mean, you're looking at another team full of, vicious bruisers on that defensive line. And even though they lost Chris Long to the Patriots, they have depth. They have depth to spare. Bob, with this offensive line on the Seahawks, you have defensive linemen in the Rams that are even better than the Dolphins. You worried?
I most definitely am. I think our defense this year is going to be solid, but I think like a lot of last year, the O-line was our Achilles heel. Just letting too many people through at Wilson, making him dance out of the way. Thankfully he can. Hopefully he can next week with that ankle injury. But I think unless we can really shore up that offensive line, we may have a problem against teams with strong defenses.
I agree with you. The only great news here is that, when you look at Tremaine Johnson, LaMarcus Joyner, Mark Barron, this is not a good defensive backfield for the Rams. The key to this game and why I'm predicting a Seattle win down in Los Angeles, the key is hit them deep. You still got to use the running game. You still got to run. But throw that ball up, get it to Baldwin, get it to Curse, get it to Lockett, and you'll win this game. All right, Bob, it's been a great show. thank you for putting this together. I'll let you take us on out of here. What should the folks know about Seattle Sports Union?
Well, let's see. The Seattle folks should know about Seattle Sports Union is that if they want to write for the Everett Silvertips, leave a comment. Go to our Facebook page, leave a comment there. Heck, email at us at seattlesportsunion@gmail.com. Also, visit us on the web, seattlesportsunion.com. On Twitter, Seattle Sports U. On Facebook, facebook.com/Seattle Sports Union. Start a conversation. We'll be more than happy to, give you our thoughts there as well. And, yeah, I've been Bob. I still am Bob Lucky. And this is Abraham DeWeese. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Tune in next week at 8 o'clock for more of the best Seattle sports commentary around, or Seattle sports commentary in town.
All right. And cut.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.